Today we're celebrating Day of Solidarity for Black Atheists or Black Humanists, African American Humanists. And we have a program tonight put on by members of CFI Indiana who are going to do some readings and tell about their life journey and so on. The percentage of black non-believers in the U.S. is small but increasing. Most have difficulty meeting other black non-believers or finding many who are involved in secular organizations. The internet has made many connections possible. However, the common feelings expressed by black non-believers are those of isolation, loneliness, or alienation. Often the remedy for these feelings is activism. This activism includes diligently searching for and befriending other non-believers, working with as many other non-believers as possible to address social ills, continuing to be educated about the factual world, providing positive expressions for secular ideas through writing and public speaking, and strengthening the secular community by supporting existing organizations as well as creating dynamic new ones. Unfettered activism is captured in the purpose of the Day of Solidarity for Black Non-Believers. So there are different groups having events all over the United States today, and maybe all over the world, but particularly in the United States, to try to emphasize this. So we are putting on one, and we have asked our African American members here at CFI Indiana to contribute. Okay, our next speaker will be Tom Sanders, and Tom started coming here, I don't remember how long ago, but he's a regular on Sunday morning at the Coffee and Conversation, and we're very glad to have Tom with us, and Tom is going to talk to you now.
Thank you, Reba.
Yes.
And I want to thank Reba for having told me about this particular occasion. Had I not known it, I probably would have been here anyway. But as far as my experience here with the Center for Inquiry, it's been a little over a year ago, this past November, that I came to be here. And it was in connection with the Charles Darwin program. Remember, I had wanted to attend, but the way I work, I couldn't get that particular Saturday off.
Okay, I forgot that.
Yeah, to go out. So it was a year ago this past November that took place.
Okay.
But thank you very much for recognizing the fact that I've been around a little while. Maybe not as
We hope you continue.
well, sure. But what I want to say, before I really get into, I'm not really here to give a speech. It's somewhat of a testimonial or just a little bit about myself. So that, and many people see me, you know me, I've been here, I've talked to you, so I'm not a stranger. But as far as my experiences of having progressed to the point where I am now, in this particular place, it's been quite a long journey. It just didn't start when I attended the University of Evansville in the 1960s. It was prior to that. As I grew up, I had always been an inquisitive individual, and I always had more or less an analytical and scientific type of a thought process. Because when I was young, I pretty much played by myself. My sisters, they went off. I'm the only boy out of 4 sisters, so they went off with their own, girlfriends and so forth. I said, I was going out in the backyard, play around out there, and I'd go out there on a nice day, particularly in the summertime, and I'd watch ants going back and forth out of ant hills and carrying other insects with them. And I'd sometimes pick up a butterfly and throw them down there and watch those ants just attack them, I said, wow. And that's nature. So I've always had an interest in the natural aspects of living. And it wasn't so much of a fact that I was like come from a religious family, because I really didn't. My mother would attend church, but as far as my recollection of my father, he never set foot in a church. And he never really said anything about going or having to go, or whether if you didn't go, you would end up in some place called hell, or for that matter, end up going to a place called heaven. So I never really thought about those things in that regards. So I was never fearful of ending up in what they call damnation, because it really never made sense to me, even as I was growing up. It just really didn't, because I could never conceive of a place where people could end up for all eternity and suffer as it was described in hellfire and damnation. It just never occurred to me that such a place exists and one would end up going there. So therefore, I just began to study. I began to read. And let me say another thing. I know Rod was talking about, the black experience as far as the churches and Christianity. Myself, I attended what was at the time Indianapolis Christmas Addicts High School. I graduated from the very last class that was all black in 1969. And my experiences in high school was such that I always wanted to find out, what's going on at some of these other schools around Indianapolis, particularly the schools that were in the suburbs. So I joined an organization called the Distributive Education Club of America. It's kind of like a business-oriented type of an affair. And they had different things that one could do. And I was always interested in speaking. So I would go to different schools, Warren Central. I was the only black person in those schools going there to speak from my school. I was the only one. So I never really had a problem, getting to know people of, the white race or any other race for that. I just went. So as I progressed through high school, I got full scholarship to the University of Evansville in 1969 to go to the United Methodist Church as a Methodist minister. Like I said, it was all about learning, because I said to myself before I graduated high school and went off to college, I said, if there is a God, maybe I can become more enlightened by going to college. Wow, think of that. It wasn't through a church connection, as I said, that I was looking for or trying to find any kind of supernatural being. Because I ran across, as I grew up in the neighborhood that I grew up in, most of the people were affiliated with the Baptist church. They had like the Pentecostals that talked about speaking in tongues, and they said if you can't do that, you're not a true Christian. And I said, my goodness, what does that mean? I guess it's something foreign to me. See, there's so many areas that one is told about. If they're not a part of that group, or they don't do this that way, then they're not going to go to a place called heaven. Well, like I said, I never worried about that. I just said, I'm going to learn. My desire is to learn, because I don't care what color you are, black, brown, yellow, green, purple, whatever you are. Who you really are is within you. These shells that we inhabit, it's not really who we really are. I might look at you and say, that's a nice elderly gentleman, distinguished looking. For all I know, he could be a mass murderer, rapist, had the nicest smile you'd ever want to have, and you never really know. Think about it. Who do you really know? The people that you meet. Their outward appearances sometimes mask who they really are. So the point that I'm trying to make, truly, I don't look at people in terms of this race or that race. Yes, I know those things exist, but I don't dwell on them. Because I tell you this, in all races, there are people that hate one another. There's going to be people that's going to love one another. And I've always been one to want to love my fellow man, no matter what color he was, no matter what race, and even if he was down and out. I'm going to do what I can to help that individual. Because if he wants to be helped, he can get help. Now, there's a lot of people out there that don't want to be helped, but I digress. My being here And I feel like maybe it would, you know, you can say, okay, it's a blessing. I had never had known of any organization, Reba, where I could come and express or even share a conversation with like-minded individuals. Because, you know, you don't really hear about atheistic organizations in mainstream. You don't talk about it. You know, they're ready to run you out of town or something like that. You know, they think you're crazy. You know, let's face it, no matter what color, like I said, no matter what color you are. So like I said, a little over a year ago, this past November, I had to be just dialing the radio, picked a particular radio station I listened to, and heard Reba speaking about this program going to take place that particular evening, on a Sunday, I think it was. But anyway, I couldn't get down, and I called, left my name. You called me back, you may not remember. And I didn't even know where it was located. She said where it was, gave me a phone number. But a whole year passed. And that's how I had to come downtown this, like a year ago this past November for some business. And I said, I'm going to try to find the Center for Inquiry on the canal. And then I started coming. So what I'm trying to say is this. I believe, if one was to ask me why I believe what I believe, is this. I do not see that any particular set of beliefs, religions, whatever, has any more exclusivity as telling someone, or if they're not a part of that, then they're damned. I never could recollect in my thinking, in my process, I never could see that, because I have never been, and I am not now, a proponent of any particular religion, set of beliefs or systems, including where we are here and now. My being here is simply to learn and to come to understand how I best fit in with the type of modality and thought processes that I have taking place in my mind. And like I said, my mind is largely analytical and scientific, because that's just the background that I've always been interested in. So, I enjoy coming here. I'd like to see more peoples of colors, no matter if they're black, Hispanic, Indian, whatever. But I know that life is all about yourself. And it's nothing, I don't think any of us could go out and get someone to come here if within them they don't really feel that they want to be in a place like this. I mean, mine was a discovery. It took me many years to come to a point where I said, look, I'm just not, going to go back into any church, because that's really not the system or the belief that I have, to share with them. And I don't want to be a phony. I don't want to tell somebody I believe a certain thing and I don't. I do want to practice what I preach. And I think if you do that, people will respect you. And they're not going to, because you're not going to find everybody's going to agree with you anyway. Whether you're in church or out of church. So what? You got to live your life as best for yourself. I don't criticize, denigrate, or mock, condemn any man, woman for what they believe in. If it's working for them and they believe it's going to make them a better person, they're not harming their fellow man and they're not hurting themselves, go for it. Make it work for you. We live in a complex world. I've been in politics. I ran for government. All of the things that society says is going to help make men better. But the fact of the matter is this: our society is not going to become better until each and every one of us become a better individual. It starts with just a single individual. A single drop of water in the ocean leads to a bountiful, full coverage of an expansive world. If asked, well, what do you really believe? I believe that we live in a universe that is fundamentally mental. What I mean by that is, I think that our thought creates our own realities, and I think that the more you think a certain thing, the more you will experience it. And as far as the belief in supernaturalism, I think that what people call supernatural in time has been discovered to be wholly natural. I think there's an explanation for everything that comes into existence, but I'm not trying to find the answers to everything, because it's not important to know all there is to know about everything. The most important thing that you got to know is who you are and how you fit in and how you're going to make it. And that's really why I'm here. You know, for me, my life is about learning. And I'm going to continue to learn, because that's the only thing that makes me feel good, is learning and appreciating what I've learned. It's not criticizing, it's not condemning. It's doing the best I can each and every day to be the best person I can possibly be. Thank you, Rich. Any questions? Ask me a question about what I've done, where I've been, who I've seen.
Get over in front of the camera.
All right.
Well, I make a comment. I was very impressed how you spoke to us, and it was very clear, and we could tell it was from the heart. And you say you never spoke before in front of a group. You did very
well.
well.
I have spoken before in front of, but your point that you said about from the heart, every time I've ever spoken, particularly about subjects that we're involved in, I've always given my true heartfelt belief about that.
Sure.
I never tried to pretend, to be someone other than who I am. I never tried to, because one thing I will say is this: if you tell someone to do something that's going to better them, and you're not doing it, why would you even say something? If you don't believe in what you believe in, why even express it?
Tom, you said you ran for some.
Several years ago here in Indiana, I ran for not Secretary of State, House of Representatives for the, believe it or not, the Republican Party. yeah. So but basically, as far as my political persuasion, I'm an adherent of the Libertarian Party. I am a Libertarian.
Okay, any other questions for Tom? Fred has something.
Yeah, Fred.
Do you know any people of any race who express a lot of skepticism about religious matters, but still go to church or synagogue just as a matter of habit?
Yeah. I've met people, Fred, throughout, my life experiences that what we'll do. You see, my mom, bless her, she went to church because that was just something she did. Like I said, my dad never expressed any interest in it, so he never went. And he wasn't, afraid to say so to people that knew him. So what I'm trying to say is this: I'm not gonna, go if in fact I'm not. See, I was never worried about ending up, like I said, in hell or heaven for that matter, because I don't even believe they exist. I think heaven and hell are states of consciousness that people live in. Like the old saying is, one man's hell can be another man's heaven. It don't matter. What's good for you may not be good for me. So you're gonna have to do what you're gonna have to do to make yourself feel much better. It's all mental. Like I said, to me, my belief is, not to agree, the universe in which we live was a mental universe. Our thoughts create our realities and our life experiences. Because I know that if you really firmly believe in something, you're going to begin to do those things that correlate with your belief system. And it's not really that difficult to figure out. So that's pretty much the way it goes. Yes.
Do you mind me asking? I'm just interested in you personally. Like, what is your profession? Do you have a family?
Well, yeah, I have a profession. I'm a manager of a liquor store for a family that owns several of them. And I've been doing that for the last 7 years. But for over 20 years almost, I was a professional car salesman. For General Motors.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I did for about 20 years.
You have a family?
I have no family other than my sisters. They're still alive. I've been married twice, and both my wives are still living. I see one of them as a friend, and
one of them came here with him one
that was
day.
the one. Yeah. So we get along real well, and I'm just a regular guy. That's really all I am. I'm just a regular guy. If you want to meet someone down, say, hey, Tom, he's just a regular guy. You know, I like to,
You are.
I am. You know, I don't have no pretense of anything other than that. But like I said, if I can't tell you something that's going to help you and benefit, I'm not going to tell you at all. Because you can mess your own life up. You don't need me. You don't need me to mess your life up, brother. No, you don't, you know. So that's how I look at it. I think that what we have to do as far as being affiliated with the Center for Inquiry, I've thought about this, Reba, is, you know, programs like this are just continually, don't be afraid if someone, you come on your job, I don't know where you work or what you do, but don't be, if someone confronts you and they ask you, what if you go, tell them straight up, no, I don't. Don't be afraid to tell someone what you really believe. Like I said, they may not agree, you know, they may get upset, but in the long run, I think they would appreciate you more for saying that. This is what I believe, or don't believe.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again to Tom for doing that for us. And we see Tom most Sunday mornings.
Mm-hmm.
So now you know a little more about Tom, to sit and talk to him than maybe you did before. I contacted a couple of our other members who couldn't come, but Desmond Wood, who some of you haven't met maybe because he doesn't make it around very often either. He's a pretty busy guy. If you get on his Facebook page, you'll see he's a classical guitarist. He's been learning that. He's does a lot of time bodybuilding. He puts his pictures on about his bodybuilding activities, and to earn a living, he drives a taxi here in town. So if you see a black and white airport taxi running around, and check and see if it has a CFI license plate frame on the back, and if it does, you know it's Desmond, because no other taxi in town has that. I saw one from that company the other day, and I looked, and there's an "In God We Trust," so I know that was not Desmond. Okay,
It was not he.
not Desmond. I had him take, he took Barry Lynn to the airport the other day because Barry was living in the middle of the day, and somebody would have had to miss part of the conference. I knew Desmond was working anyway, so I called Desmond, and I thought, well, we might as well give him the business. So he enjoyed talking to Barry Lynn. He told me, he said, thanks so much, because I got to talk to Barry Lynn on the way to the airport. Desmond calls me once in a while, texts me, we message on Facebook, but he's a pretty busy guy, so he doesn't make it over here very often. We're going to tape a podcast tomorrow that Desmond's going to be on. We have some other, if you go to indyfreethought.com, you can see Desmond's speech that he gave at our African American program a couple years ago. And we have some other, at least one other interview out there on our Indy Free Thought of him. And so since Desmond could not be here tonight, he's either working or had something else going on, he made a video especially for tonight to show to us. So Steve will put that on and show it to us now.
Greetings, my name is Desmond Wood, and I'm producing this video for African Americans for Humanism Day of Solidarity. I am a proud atheist, a freethinker, and I'm one of the few African American atheists there are in this country, and black atheists in the world. However, that will not discourage me from promulgating science, reason, skepticism, scientific inquiry, and so on. My journey from theism to atheism encompasses at least 12 years, beginning, of course, as a brainwashed child with Christianity instilled in my psyche, as is the case with many children across the globe. And I consider that a great crime, because such children have no say-so on the matter. They have not developed reason, nor have they been presented with options such as other religions or other theories, namely the theory of evolution, supported by a vast body of evidence and unanimity among scientists across the globe. And so I journeyed through Islam from the year 2000 until 2005, and I learned and spoke and read classical Arabic. I traveled to Saudi Arabia and Libya in 2003 and 2004. In 2005, when I came back, I met some fellas in the city that attended a school called Now Valley Institute, founded by my dear friend Muhammad's father, Clarence Muhammad. They taught esotericism, and we learned the works of George Ivanovich Gurdjieff, teacher of the work, aka the Fourth Way, as espoused by P.D. Ouspensky, a Russian intellectual, mathematician, and so on, and Maurice Nicole, a psychologist or psychiatrist, European individual, I believe. And the works of Einstein and Stephen Hawking and quantum physics and other esoteric studies alongside what we call the work, which is striving to become more conscious, more aware of oneself and the world in which we inhabit, and attempting to cease being mechanical, hence being present, discovering the joy of the present moment, and so on. And so after a year studying with them, ultimately I stumbled upon the CFI, headed by Reba Boyd Wooden, and met fellow atheists and agnostics there. And to this day, I interact with free thinkers, agnostics, and atheists, even religious folk, though they can't tolerate the criticism of their religion, and so on. And so I encourage all African Americans and black folk across the globe to not be ashamed to come out of the closet and profess that you are a happy atheist, agnostic, that you're peaceful, that you are happy, that you have morals, that you have a backbone, you stand for something, without the belief in a God or a devil, without belief in heaven. I want to share with you some of the books that were very crucial in my journey to atheism. On the top of the list of books that were influential in my transition from theism to atheism are these books here. Richard Dawkins' The God Delusion. The Awakening of Intelligence by Jiddu Krishnamurti. Guns, Germs, and Steel by the Pulitzer Prize-winning scholar and author Jared Diamond. Echoes of the Old Darkland by Dr. Charles Finch. Themes from the African Eden. And this book deals with the African origins of major religions, particularly Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and how symbols which permeate these religions can be found in ancient Egypt, in the Nubian temples and carvings and so on. Dr. Ben Yohanan, African Origins of the Major Western Religions. And the great Senegalese scholar Cheikh Anta Diop in the French, Cheikh Anta Diop in English, Civilization or Barbarism, an Authentic Anthropology. This man was a multilinguist, he was a nuclear physicist, and an anthropologist, and a very mighty African scholar. We are greatly indebted to the works of Cheikh Anta Diop and his partner Théophile Obenga from Congo, who speaks 10 languages. So those are some of the books which were very pivotal in my transition from theism to atheism, and I hope that you will buy some of these books and enlighten your mind.
Okay, I'd like to thank all of you for coming tonight for our first day of solidarity for celebration for Black Atheists. Hopefully we'll have this as a yearly thing, and next year we will have more representatives of the African American community here. I'd like to thank Rod Ross and Tom Sanders for being on the program tonight, and to Desmond for making the video for us. And thank you all for attending, and hope we'll have a bigger and better program next year. Thank you.